this is Katie. Today's video, hold on. Oh gosh, so much lipstick on my teeth. So much, hold on. Hi, this is Katie. Today's video is going to be another part in my Travel 101, how to sleep in your car, how to live in your car, how to go on a road trip series that I've been doing every Tuesday or Wednesday. I think I uploaded one or two on a Wednesday because my computer was giving me hassles, but every Tuesday over the last month and for the next month or two, I'm going to be doing these like Travel 101 videos where I just give you like all the tips and tricks and lessons and ideas that I have learned over the last 8 years of traveling in my little car on and off, sleeping in it, living out of it, and driving around the country and being on a really, really long on and off road trip. And so today's video is going to be where to sleep in your car. And so you guys know I've slept in this little Toyota Yaris 18,045 times, and I have scoped out some safe places to park while you sleep. And first of all, have I done this video before? Absolutely. Like a couple of years ago, I've done this video maybe like twice in the past 5 years, but stick with me. Don't click off, because the last couple times that I did this video, I really just talked about the places that I slept and maybe one or two others that I knew people slept at. But this time I did a lot of research. Yesterday was just research day. I sat on the couch all day and did research for a couple videos. I don't know if you just saw that fuzz like fly up, but if you did, it was magical. I did a lot of research yesterday on where other people sleep when they're on a road trip, whether they're in an RV, van, car, whatever. And so I have a lot more options than I've had in my past videos. So I probably have 10 ideas or so. And then safety and stuff is gonna be in another video, but in this video, I'm also gonna give you a couple little other tips about like where to park, besides just where to park, but also tips on where to park. Does that make sense? No, not really. Anyway, so that's what today's video is going to be. If you're excited about this travel series, if you're just excited to see me hang out in my daily life and do some vlogs and talk about food and talk about mental health and talk about all these other things on my little YouTube channel with all of you guys, with all my friends, I would love it if you subscribed. I would love it. It would make me so happy if you subscribed right now and click the notification bell as well, and follow me on Instagram. I do more daily stuff over there. Last night I did an Instagram poll on my stories asking if you guys thought that boneless chicken wings were actual chicken wings or if they were just fancy chicken nuggets with sauce on them. I think they're just chicken nuggets. Anyway, I do stuff like that over on my Instagram and a little bit more daily updates, so I'd love to have you over there as well. And I guess without further ado, let's get into all these notes that I took on a piece of paper yesterday, not on my phone. You guys know I always take notes on my phone. Last night, I was in the mood to write it down with a pen like it's 1993. Okay, so most of you guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, that I really only sleep at like 2 or 3 different types of places when I'm traveling in my car. Truck stops, rest areas, and welcome centers, which they're kind of similar, those last two. So like 2 places. Those are the places that I feel comfortable at, that I feel safe at, and that I have slept at hundreds of times. But again, I talked about that before, and a lot of you guys already know that that's where I sleep. And so I did a ton of other research on blogs and stuff yesterday. That was not last night, that was yesterday, like all day. I did a lot of research to see where other car dwellers and van dwellers and travelers sleep. And so I have a ton of options. If you're like, nah, I don't feel safe at rest stops and truck stops are too loud or whatever, I have a ton of other options. So let's get into, I guess I'm just gonna go in order of whatever I wrote down. That sounds good, right? All right, number 1, truck stops. Truck stops. So a truck stop essentially is like a giant gas station, and they're geared more towards travelers. A lot of them will even say like travel center, and you know, trucks will park there overnight. I think they have to pay to park overnight trucks. There's a fuzz on me, but there's also a gas station, and then there's also like a big store where they not only sell like snacks and stuff, but they might sell like motor oil and chargers and stuff like that. Like it's just essentially a really big gas station. But most truck stops, in my experience, again over the years, in my experience, most truck stops you can sleep at and you can stay there overnight, no problem. My favorite personally is Flying J. It used to be Pilot. They're the same company, so I'm not really like cheating on Pilot with Flying J, but my favorite is Flying J, and that is mostly because I don't think I've ever found a Flying J maybe a couple, but not very often. I don't really think that I've ever found any that I couldn't sleep at. And by that, I mean some pilots and some Loves and some TA and all those other like really popular truck stops. Some of them, especially Loves, will have signs that say either no overnight parking, or a lot of them will say like 2-hour parking only. And obviously this is a tip. I was gonna get into the tips later, but this is a very obvious one. If it says 2-hour parking or no overnight parking, don't sleep there. Don't sleep there. Unless it's like an emergency, don't sleep there. But yeah, so Flying J, I really have not encountered many, or if any at all, that had those signs. And so when they don't have the signs, then I've been able to sleep there and I've slept totally fine. But some pilots as well, maybe a couple Loves, a couple TA, there's some other bigger ones, but I have just always felt safe at truck stops, because what I look for where I'm sleeping is a lot of people and a lot of light and probably security cameras. That's what I feel comfortable with. I know that not everyone wants to do that. I know that some people want to sleep like more like kind of back roads, like really quiet. And I do have some of those options as well. But I feel safer when I know there's a lot of people around, and when I know like a store is open 24/7, and when there's lights. Because for me, I just feel safer. I just feel safer that way. And so truck stops always have people around. There's always people in the store, even if it's just the people working, but usually there's people in and out. And I just feel safer that way, knowing that there's other people around, and there's usually other people sleeping as well at them. And so that makes me feel safer as well. So truck stops, they're my favorite place to sleep. Next on the list is rest stops. And so I know that I've actually had a lot of feedback from you guys that you don't feel safe sleeping at rest stops, or you don't even really feel safe stopping at rest stops sometimes. I have almost always had totally fine experience at rest areas. I understand what you guys are talking about. Some of them can be a little like creepier, but I'm just talking about when you're on a highway and there's a rest stop every, 40 miles or whatever. A lot of those you can also legally sleep at, or at least stop for several hours, because some of them might still say no overnight parking, but it might say like up to 4 hours. And so if you just really need like a long nap or something, you might be able to do that. But there are some, again, that don't have any signs and you can sleep there fine. I have never been kicked out of a rest stop. I've only been kicked out of a truck stop once in my whole life. And I usually sleep at truck stops, and I've only been kicked out once. So again, kind of similar to rest stops, there are welcome centers, or even just giant gas stations throughout the country that are kind of somewhere in between like a truck stop and a rest area, but like they're huge. Like I'm trying to think, like there's some that are right off the highway that are like almost like a travel center with like a ton of food options, and then like a gas station, and then a giant parking lot. There are some of those. And then there's some welcome centers that, like, when you get into a new state, it'll say welcome to Oregon, and then there will be a welcome center. I have slept at those places before, and those I felt totally safe and totally fine as well. I also prefer, on top of the having people around and the store open and whatever, I like having a place where there's bathrooms. And so welcome centers and truck stops and rest areas do have bathrooms, but there's nobody like attending. Sometimes there's security, but not usually. And so that's a little less safe to me. But a place like Pilot or something, there's always people working and stuff. So I feel safer. But anyway, yeah, so there's rest stops, welcome centers, giant gas stations. I've even just slept at regular gas stations a couple times. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but it was more of like a last resort. That would not be my first choice. But that was more of like, oh, I don't have anywhere else to stay within like an hour drive, and I was tired. And it's more important to pull over than drive when you're really, really sleepy. So anyway, next, Walmart. I have slept at a Walmart once in my whole travels, and I'm sure that's going to surprise some of you because that is such a popular place for travelers to sleep. I don't know. I just never really had the urge to sleep at Walmart, but I did once. But I know that there's all those rumors. I'm not sure that they're 100% true, but there are all those rumors that like the owner of Walmart used to live in his car. And so that makes him a little bit more open to having people sleep in his parking lot, not get in trouble. I know a ton of people who sleep at Walmart. It's like a ton, and they've always been fine there. And so I think that could be an option. And then also even, it's not the same, but also even like Target or just like big stores like that. I think someone mentioned something about like Big Lots and Home Depot, that there might be a couple other places. Again, look for the signs. But one of the safest ways to do that is if you see other vans or other cars that look like they're sleeping because they have stuff up, or they kind of just look parked for the night, then that probably means that you could sleep there as well and not get in trouble and be safe. Probably. Again, use your own discretion and stuff. But yeah, so Walmarts are fine from what I've heard. I've only slept there once. I've slept at a Target like twice, and that was fine. And then, yeah, I think I actually... Hold on, please hold. I know all my notes are on that piece of paper, but I have a couple on my phone. Okay, ReneeRoaming.com, who I used some of her suggestions, so thank you, Renee. I don't know why you'd be watching this, but thank you. There were 1 or 2 suggestions of hers that I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. So she said, some places in the US that often allow overnight parking are Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, Home Depot, Lowe's, Cabela's, Cracker Barrel, Kmart, rest stops, and then a couple others that I'm gonna get to. And so I've never tried those besides Walmart and rest stops. I haven't ever tried those, but she suggests them. I will have that article that I got that screenshot from. I'll have that linked below so you can go check that out yourself, because there are just other people's opinions of where they've slept as well. And so yeah, some big parking lots are okay. Some big parking lots are okay. And again, the ones that I know are okay most of the time are Walmarts. So I already said welcome centers, I already said giant gas stations. So one thing that when I researched, do you like this shadow? One thing that I learned during my research was that it's usually safe to sleep at casinos. I never thought about that. But they're usually open 24 hours, and it's usually a big parking lot, and there's usually a ton of cars parked there anyway. So casinos, we're on like, cause I looked at like a couple lists, and casinos, I think we're on more than one list of suggested places to sleep. So you can try out some casinos. It's really the whole idea of anywhere that there's going to be normally cars parked overnight. That's kind of the idea. So Walmart's, because a lot of them are 24 hours, or any real big 24-hour stores, or places like casinos or truck stops, things like that, that are going to have cars parked there overnight anyway, or at night anyway. Those are generally some of the safest and some of the more like allowed and more like, yeah, that's fine places to sleep. And I've had a lot of people ask me if I call ahead to a truck stop or to any other place that I've mentioned or going to mention. I've been asked a lot if I call ahead to ask for permission or to tell them that I'm sleeping there, and I honestly don't. I've never done that. You can if you want to. If that would make you feel more safe, you can absolutely call ahead and see if you're like allowed to sleep somewhere, but I just have never done that. I've just never done that before. And I have only ever in my life been kicked out of parking lots 3 times. Twice was at a grocery store parking lot. That's why I did not list that. But during my research yesterday, some people did say grocery store parking lot. So again, there are different opinions on things like that. And then the only other time I ever got kicked out was once at a Pilot. But yeah, I just don't ask. I don't ask first. I just sleep there. But if you want to, you can totally call ahead and do that if you want to. I don't know. I've just never done that. Another place that I've heard is like safe and fine to sleep at, but I've never done it, is church parking lots, or just like any religious building, their parking lot apparently is safe. I've never done it, but I've seen that a lot in my research as well. People saying like religious building parking lots are pretty safe. I think the last in terms of parking lots that I have on my list that I would recommend are 24-hour gyms. So again, similar to the Walmarts and stuff, 24-hour gyms, the parking lot's probably big enough and they're gonna have people in and out anyway. And so you'll probably, I'm pretty sure one of my friends used to sleep at a gym. And I think I've even heard that a couple times, like outside of my research that I did yesterday, that people have slept at 24-hour gyms. So you can try that as well. Again, a big parking lot and it's open 24 hours. Okay, now besides parking lots, there are definitely a couple other places to sleep. One is side roads. I feel like I'm yelling at you right now because I am, because it's dangerous. I do not mean the side of a highway. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. No. The only reason to pull over on the side of the highway is like an emergency. That's the only real reason, okay? Do not pull over on the side of the highway and sleep. That is dangerous. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm yelling at you. Don't do it. I will yell at you if you do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. What I mean when I'm talking about side roads is like residential side streets. And again, don't sleep if it says private property or anything like that, or like, you know, no overnight parking or anything like that. But there are a ton of places that just sleeping on the side of the road in a residential-ish area, maybe even a city area, depending. Some like sleeping on city streets is actually illegal, depending on the city or the town. But residential streets, if you just find like a real side street where there are other cars parked, but you also don't think that you're really gonna bother anyone, like you're not directly in front of someone's house or something like that, could be totally fine. So another place that you could sleep in your car is campgrounds. Some are free, some you might have to pay a little bit, some you might have to pay a lot, but those usually come with showers. But campgrounds, you don't have to camp at a campground. So if you reserve a site, or even if they're free, but you kind of just like find a campsite, you could still sleep in your car there. Or you could, squirrel. Wow, that's like the joke of people who get distracted easily, but that literally just happened. A squirrel's just like running past. I swear I did not mean to like make that as a joke. I swear. I swear I just saw a squirrel and just like had to say it out loud. Wow. The distraction level of Katie Carney is 10 out of 10. But so anywhere that you reserve a campground or just park at a campground, you can just sleep in your car if you don't feel like pitching a tent. And so that's something that I have done at like national parks, that like I've gotten a campground because I'm just going to be in the parks for a couple days, but I just didn't want to sleep in the tent, so I slept in my car. And sometimes it's free, sometimes it's a little money, sometimes it's a lot of money. Just depends where you are really and like what you're looking for. So next, I have a lot, guys. I have a lot. This excites me because even some of these I didn't really think about. Like this next one I never even really thought about. And so apparently the National Forest Service has some like designated campgrounds and then some, what is it called? Dispersed campgrounds, which essentially designated campgrounds are, you know, you get a campground and they tell you you're at C4 and you go over there and that's where you can like pitch your tent, and here's a little bench and here's a fire pit and that's where the bathrooms are. That's, you know, like a dedicated campground. But then they also have dispersed campgrounds, I guess, at some places like national forests where it's not like that, but you're still allowed to sleep there, and you can either sleep in your car or you can camp, obviously. But that's something that just look up on the National Forest Service. I did not write down a website, but just the National Forest Service. And so I guess if you kind of know where you're gonna be, look up to see if there's a national forest around, and then you can either call them or probably find some stuff online to see if there are any of those, what was it called again? Dispersed camping spots. Because you can just park there. And I guess most of them don't have bathrooms or anything like that, but maybe a couple do. But that's a place that you could go. Also some state parks, but again, it's the same thing. Research that first. But I guess some state parks allow you to have like more of like the dispersed camping kind of thing. I don't know why, but I never really thought about sleeping at state parks before. So that kind of excites me because I like parks. Yeah, but that's a little bit more like Google. Ask the internet, because it's going to be different in every state and every park. But it definitely is an option, which is super cool. The last option I think that I have is Bureau of Land Management, like BLM Land, which is mostly out west. I guess most of it is out west, but that is essentially public land where you're allowed to sleep, you're allowed to camp, you're allowed to do cartwheels, you can do whatever you want. And again, that is just something, look it up, research. It's not even gonna take a lot of research to find these things. Just a couple minutes of, I'm going to be in Denver. Is there any BLM land there? You can just Google. Maybe not exactly that sentence, like Denver BLM land. Just Google that and see, I'm pretty sure most of that is free. The state parks and the National Forest Service, you might have to pay, so don't quote me on if that's free or not. I'm not 100% sure. But the BLM land, again, I'm not sure. You might have to pay for that, but if you do, I'm sure it's not very expensive. And I'm sure you don't have to pay for most of it. And I'm sure one of you guys knows more than I do about that and is gonna correct me, because I've never really slept on BLM land, because again, I like to be in a giant parking lot where there's a bathroom. That's just my preference. Maybe if I'm with other people or something, I would be fine with BLM land, but I like where there's bathrooms. I'm a little spoiled in that way. I like bathrooms. But yeah, so BLM land is a great place where it is legal to sleep in your car or pitch a tent or something. But again, just Google that, because there's a ton of it. And a lot of times you'll get really pretty views. So again, if parking lots are not your thing, if you don't want to sleep near a ton of other people, if you kind of want to be more off the grid, I would suggest the National Forest Service, state parks, and then even some local parks probably, and BLM land. And that's all stuff that you can Google, because there are a ton of options. And then you can just ask the internet which option's best for you wherever you are. Okay, I think that's it for like my actual recommendations of where to sleep. Is that a full list? No, absolutely not. No, there's tons of places. There are tons of places to sleep, but these are just the ones that either I have slept at or the ones that within my research, I'm like, that makes sense. I would recommend that. But there are going to be a ton of options. And so just like always, and especially in these videos, but like always, I want to hear your opinions as well. And so if you've ever slept anywhere else in your car and you have felt like safe there and you felt like that's somewhere that you would recommend, let me know in the comments. And then we can all share and chat and share it with each other, which is really, really cool. So anyway, now I'm going to get on to a couple websites and apps that I would recommend, and then I'm going to get on to like my tips of like where to park, because that's really important. Like, I hope that you guys watch this to the end, because the tips that I have there, not a lot, There are only a couple, but they're very important. Okay, so some of the apps and websites that I found that could be super helpful if you're looking for a place to stay. The first is HipCamp, which is kind of like Airbnb, but for camping. And so you can find sometimes cheap places, sometimes expensive places to camp. You know, like on like if people have a lot of land and they're like, oh, well, I'm never over there. I can just rent that out for $10 a night or something like that. Or just any places that camping or glamping. I think even some might have, cabins. And then obviously wherever you're allowed to camp, if there's a parking space, you're allowed to just sleep in your car. You know, you don't have to pitch a tent. But yeah, so HipCamp could be super helpful if you want to know that where you're sleeping is like safe and secure and legal, but you just might have to pay a little bit of money to do so. Like I'm literally looking at HipCamp right now, and there are, I mean, this was $150, gets an adult treehouse. Actually, that's pretty cool. This one's a legit treehouse. And then, yeah, there are some cabins, but then there are just some campsites that people are offering. And yeah, so that's HipCamp if you want to, you know, like almost research where you're going to stay first. And if you are okay with paying a little bit of money to go camping, HipCamp could be a really good option for you. There's also, if you don't want to spend the money, freecampsites.net, which you could just assume what that is. Free campsites. .net, not .com, .net. And then there's another one called AllState. So if you go to allstays.com, it'll show you, there's like an app that you can buy. I think it's like $7 or something, the Camp and RV app. So the AllStays app, it shows you campgrounds, BLM Land, national forests and state parks. And it tells you like which Walmarts are like the safest to sleep at, and Sam's Club and Costco. So that's on here as well. Overnight parking like casinos, truck stops, all that kind of stuff. And so that is very, very handy. Very, very handy, especially if you're on the road for a long time, having an app like that. And then the hipcamp.com and freecampsites.net are just free websites, but the AllStays is an app that you download. But again, I think it's only like $7, which perception of money is so interesting because $7 for an app seems expensive, but you would pay $7 easy for like a campground for one night. But if you get this app, it'll last you like forever. You know what I mean? Like we have such weird perception of money sometimes, depending what it is. Anyway, okay, is that it with the apps and the websites? Obviously the National Forest Service. And obviously there are tons of other websites. So again, just like other places that you've slept, I want you to leave in the comments. Also leave me other websites that you use to find places to sleep. If you have ever used any, let me know in the comments as well. So I think we're done with that. Now I'm gonna quickly talk about where not to park. And I know that I just briefly mentioned that like early in the video, but I want this to be its own little section of where not to park. Anywhere that has a no overnight parking sign. These are gonna sound real obvious, guys, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. No parking signs, no overnight parking signs, don't park there. Don't do it. 2-hour parking, 30-minute parking, patrons only, any of those signs, don't park there. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Parking for residents only, private property or private parking only, don't park there. Don't park there. Also, maybe don't park where the street signs are really, really confusing. You know, like in like New York or LA, it's like no parking from 7 to 9, only parking from 7 to 9. Wednesdays, you have to do handstands if you want to park here. It's like, what are you talking about? Just don't park there because you're probably tired anyway and you'll get really confused. Don't park in like a small business parking lot, you know, like just don't do that because that would be real awkward in the morning. Just don't do that. And those are going to be more likely places that, you know, cops or something might just say, hey, you can't sleep here. Okay, and the last place not to park, I mean, there are tons of places not to park. Just, you know, like it's common sense. But these are just some of the ones that I'm like, I gotta drill them into your brain, even though they are kind of common sense. The last one is somewhere that you were previously kicked out of, especially if you were kicked out recently. Just don't park there. Just don't. Don't go back like the next day and be like, oh, I wonder if I can get away with it tonight. Don't do that. Maybe a couple weeks later, but, or maybe never. Maybe never. If you got kicked out, don't go back. Give it a little while. You know, it's like a breakup. Just clean break. Don't keep texting or calling. Just clean break. Okay, now let's get into the couple tips that I have. And again, safety, or I don't know if I said this already, safety is going to be in a different video. But these are just a couple potentially safety things, but specifically about where to park. And just a couple. Be inconspicuous. Inconspicuous. That's a hard word to say. Inconspicuous. I don't like it. Anyway, don't be a jerk. Respect the area. You know, like don't play loud music. Just be respectful and be kind of like secretive. be kind of secretive. And so what that means, at least for me, is when I park, I immediately put up all of my like shades that I have, because I don't really want people to see, especially like a solo woman in a car by herself sleeping. I don't want people to see that. And so when I pull into the parking spot, I immediately cover my windows. And I generally don't use that restroom unless I have to. So usually what I will do is I will go to a Target, Walmart, gas station, whatever, before, like right before I'm gonna go to sleep. And then I will drive to where I'm sleeping and then pull in, immediately cover my windows, turn my car off, and just like get in bed. And I usually also go quite late. I go basically right when I'm about to go to bed. I don't want to get there much earlier than that, because then you're just kind of hanging out, and it's a little bit more likely that you know, might catch attention of other people, which you just really don't want to do. Obviously, people are going to know that you're sleeping in a car, because you're gonna have your windows covered, you're gonna be parked there overnight, whatever. Like, people are gonna know 9 times out of 10 that you're sleeping in your car or your van, but you really don't want them to know who you are. That's kind of the biggest thing. You don't want them to know who you are. You don't really wanna make a footprint. You just wanna go, park, be quiet, and then when you wake up, leave. So don't dilly-dally in the morning too much, like wake up and leave. I think the earliest I'll really ever get somewhere is like 9. Usually I try to go 10 or 11, but usually on the road I go to sleep a little bit earlier. And then right when I wake up, which depending, you know, when and where I am, is anywhere between like 6 and 8 when I'm on the road, I will get up and I might, you know, take a couple minutes to wake up, but then I will just immediately take everything down and leave. Again, you don't want to be rude, you don't want to take up too much space, and you want to be inconspicuous. I really don't like that word. Another tip that I have is sleep where there's other cars. And again, this might not be a tip for you. This is just something that I prefer, because you might want to do BLM land away from everyone. But if you're going to sleep in a parking lot or something, I would recommend seeing that there are other people sleeping there. And if there are enough spots, you know, give a couple spots in between, but still maybe kind of near other people sleeping, solely because you probably know that that's a pretty safe place to be and that there are other people around. But again, if there's like 100 spots, don't park right next to someone sleeping in their car, because that's just a little creepy and a little like personal space boundaries. But I feel much safer when I see a bunch of cars that are obviously people sleeping in them. Like, that makes me feel safer. Again, different for everyone, but that's what I like. It's kind of like safety in numbers is how I kind of see that. And again, I know some people don't agree. So like, well, if there's people around, it's more likely that something bad might happen. But in my opinion, it's no, if there's people around, it's more likely that if something bad happens, there are other people to help you. That's how I see it. So that's how I feel safest. Again, it might be different for you. And I wrote, get there late and leave early. Don't hang out there all day. Unless you're in like a Walmart or something, they might not mind. Like, it's not a huge deal. But especially if you're in like a gas station parking lot or something a little bit smaller, or just a little bit more like noticeable of all the spots, just get there right when you're about to sleep and leave right when you wake up. It's just, you know, common courtesy, kind of. But again, like, I hang out in parking lots sometimes during the day, but it's different parking lots. You know, I'm not just gonna like live in a gas station parking lot. I will go to different parking lots. And the last one is where you park. Don't park right in front of the business. So I'm thinking, especially when I've said these few tips, in my head, I'm thinking of like a Flying J. And so, you know, when you go to a truck stop or like a really, really big gas station or something like that, and there are some parking spaces right in front of the business, don't park there. Don't park there. That's for the people who are like running in and out, who are just gonna be parking for 20 minutes or whatever. Don't park there. Park on the side, or park closer to the road, or park in the back, or however the parking lot is laid out, but park somewhere that is not right in front of the building. Again, just because, common courtesy. You know, that business is there to make money. So if you're taking up space all night in a parking space that's right in the front, it's just not really common courtesy. You know, it's just not really being nice to the business. So park in the back, on the side, closer to the road, something like that. Just don't park right in the front, in front of the business. Oh, one last tip. And this tip is like at your own risk. Don't sleep at the same place every single night for like 3 months. I generally, if I'm gonna be somewhere for several weeks, I try to find like 3 or 4 places that I can sleep at and just kind of rotate. So I have definitely slept in the same place like 3 or 4 nights in a row, but it just seems safest and just nicest to the company to not really do that very often, and to not just sleep at the same place for weeks and weeks on end. So see if you can kind of rotate it up, or just, you know, one night here, one night here, one night here. As much as, yeah, it's a parking lot and who cares, whatever, right? Like, that's kind of what we might think. It still is a business, and we want to be inconspicuous. I hate that word. I didn't even know I hated it until today. But we want to be kind, you know, like, don't litter, don't play loud music, don't be a jerk. You know, don't be a jerk. And so that's why it is even nice to, you know, like in the morning, if you're at the gas station, get gas there, or, you know, get your coffee at the gas station, or if you're staying somewhere else, you know, go in and spend maybe a little bit of money there if you're going to spend the money anyway. There are definitely times that I have not done that, but again, it is like a nice common courtesy kind of thing. Don't play loud music. Don't stay there and like cook your whole meal where you're sleeping. Don't litter. Don't, you know, just don't cause a scene. Don't, you know what I mean? I think it's just a lot of it's like, be nice. Be nice, be kind, and just don't be a jerk. That should be my whole motto. Should I have that on like some new merch? Don't be a jerk. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video of where to sleep in your car when you're on a road trip, or even honestly, these tips work when you're staying in one place as well. You guys know that most of my videos are geared towards road trips, but a lot of my tips can work for people staying in one place as well, or who just kind of do these things every once in a while. So I really hope that you enjoyed it. And I hope that you're enjoying this whole series of my Travel 101 road trip, party time, sleeping in the car, driving around the country kind of videos. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. So I hope that you're subscribed and following me on Instagram. And I guess that's going to be it. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I love you. Jesus loves you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.